Growing up surrounded by jazz, today's guest was introduced to the music by his father, Bill Miner, a respected jazz record collector and discographer. From an early age, he absorbed the sounds of classic records, attended concerts, and studied with some of the finest teachers, shaping him into one of the most in-demand bassists of the New York City jazz scene. So we're really happy to have Neal Miner with us today. With a career spanning decades, he's toured and recorded with legends like Jon Hendricks and Annie Ross, contributing as a bassist and arranger. As a leader, his six records showcase his deep musicality, compositional voice, and respect for the jazz tradition. So whether on stage or teaching on the collegiate level, he continues to carry the legacy of jazz forward. So Neal, thanks so much for taking the time today to speak with me.
Abe, what an honor to be here. Thank you so much for offering me this opportunity.
Oh, my pleasure. Neal, you've been the man on the scene for such a long time, and I wanted to talk to you about, what's changed, in your eyes, as far as the New York City jazz scene, since you started working here, whether it be, venues, the musicians, culturally. What do you see different today most than from when you started?
Well, I mean, I guess, jazz is constantly changing. I mean, it's rarely ever stands still for very long, but I mean, I think that I caught the tail end of like a lot of the legends, especially growing up as a young kid in New York City with my dad, as you mentioned, was a jazz fan. He used to take me to go and hear anyone from like Dizzy Gillespie, Zoot Sims, Carmen McRae, the MJQ. I mean, I was just luckily going out hearing music with him all the time because he was, and he would just take me along since he knew I liked it. Tommy Flanagan, George Mraz. So I was just like, growing up, idolizing these guys, and then when I started playing and going out and going to the Vanguard and hearing people like Johnny Griffin, and I remember hearing Ray Brown down at the Vanguard with Holly Hoffman one time, and Tommy Flanagan, and it was just like I just grew up like looking up to these legends, and sadly there's very few of them left. And I guess it's just the way the world works with the changing of the generations, and now there's just so many amazing younger musicians. So it's just like it just keeps evolving. But I think that's probably the main thing for me is just that lack of those. I mean, like in early Smalls days, you could call up someone like Al Harewood to come do your gig, or Walter Perkins, or Dick Katz, or Bubba Brooks, or Tommy Turrentine lived down there. So it was just like we just felt like kids, like looking up to these legends. So I'm grateful that I experienced that, but I think that's probably one of the few things that I feel a difference, that I'm just getting to know a lot more younger players, and obviously the ones of my generation, like Brad Meldau, have really become like legends. So
Yeah, that's a
Chris.
great answer. Do you think maybe your dad was sort of like maybe grooming you to be a jazz musician, whether, something like that, like he envisioned you in a sense that that's what you were going to be doing?
Well, I mean, I think that, well, it was kind of like our sports. I mean, he wasn't a sports fan. I think that fathers and sons kind of bond in certain things. So like jazz was kind of like our sports. And as soon as I, expressed an interest, he just really went into, education mode and, teacher mode. And so I was very lucky. And I don't know. I mean, he was pretty hard on me. I mean, he really, had, he didn't just like say, "Oh, you sound great. Oh, you sound great." He would only say it if he really meant it, and I guess he didn't really hear it that often, when I was just starting out. So, he was. It definitely was a. It made me work extra hard because I wanted to please him, obviously. But he definitely was like, if you say grooming, I think he was just like all consumed with educating me. Yeah,
Yeah,
which I was
so
very lucky.
very, very, very supportive. Like which is amazing to hear. So, you know, who around that time when you really started, getting into jazz, um, what was there a certain basis that changed the way you think about the instrument, or a certain musician where it's like, or a concert you went to, you think that really, opened the door?
You mean yeah, live? You're talking about back then?
Yeah, or, live, or even maybe studying with someone in that sense, like your first real jazz, bass teacher, anything that really comes to mind.
Sure. I mean, well, I was very lucky. I got to study with Orrin O'Brien, who was great classical teacher. I mean, she's still around. She just retired from the Philharmonic not so long ago. There's actually a brilliant documentary on her that's on Netflix right now called The Only Girl in the Orchestra. And it is, I highly recommend everybody see it. It's for, on Netflix right now. And she's a legendary teacher. She taught everybody from like Eddie Gomez to David Grossman. I mean, and just David Wong, I know, studied with her. She was just kind of a legend teacher and taught a lot of jazz players. So I was grateful that I got to study with her. And, I didn't really take to the classics, but she really just helped me use her great technique for mostly for my left hand. I do play with the bow a little bit, but it's not something I solo with. But then after that, John Weber, who was only a few years older than me from Chicago, was had moved to New York and was just playing amazingly and just blew me away. And I studied with him for a few years on and off. And he was really a great influence on me with sound and harmony and just, introducing me to great bass players and great recordings. And just, he's a monster.
And you talked about the how things have changed in the since when you were coming up, and you could go hear some of these legends at Smalls, that sort of thing. Were you going to Bradley's a lot when you were coming up? I mean, like, what's a club or venue you really miss from the older scene in that sense?
Yeah, I mean, I did go to Bradley's. I first went with my dad when I got to hear Red Mitchell playing with Hank Jones, I believe it was Hank Jones. And, he used to take me to Zeno's and what's the place? Knickerbockers. And, those were like some of the first places I went to. And then I started going there on my own as well. When I was like maybe even earlier than 21, like I would just kind of somehow they let me in and like seat me with a table that would kind of chaperone me. But I went to Bradley's quite a bit and I heard a lot of great players there. I remember even hearing Ray Brown there. I heard George Mraz there many times, and then all sorts of people like Peter Washington and Essiet and Dwayne Burno and you name it. I mean,
There weren't a lot of drummer bands, and it was mostly from what I'm not around from that era, but not more without the drums in a sense, right?
yeah, there was a weird period right when I first started going out, like in the mid to late 80s. There was this cabaret law that said that no drums could be in bands, and also there was like no dancing allowed, I believe. But the main thing I remember was there was a lot of drumless groups, and so I used to hear like at the old Angry Squire, I would hear Barry Harris play with Walter Booker. I remember hearing, and of course, Tommy Flanagan, George Mraz duo, they were playing all over the place. I went with my dad to hear them at Fortune Garden Pavilion and Bradley's, but then Bradley's maybe that changed, and then Bradley's added drums, and then it was like pretty much drums most of the time.
I've always wondered about that. I didn't know that. So
Yeah, it was a cabaret law. I don't know why, but it was what it was, and it was kind of cool though, in a sense for me, because I grew up like also playing without drums a lot. And I think that was very helpful for me because it makes you stronger as a bass player to play without drums and really keep the time and the energy and not drag. So it's kind of an added plus.
being a bass player is you're the rhythm section. I don't I hate to use the word being a sideman,
Mhm.
because I feel like it's a collaborative thing, but you're someone who people want to work with and call to play with. As far as people who have called you, what's one that really surprised you and just got you super excited? Like, oh, that I can't believe I'm getting this phone call to work with this person now.
Well, someone who I've always admired to no end is David Hazeltine. And I had kind of grown up listening to his He's good, 15 years older than me, listening to his records, and always just been so in awe of his feeling and his jazz spirit, and he just embodies it. And he's been calling me over the past bunch of years now, but more often than and doing recordings now. So that's been a real thrill of someone who I've looked up to, and then got calls. But like you mentioned, getting to play with Jon Hendricks and Andy Ross was very
You used to play
was
with Annie at the Metropolitan Room.
I did. I did the whole 10-year run with her there. Yeah.
That's why.
Every
Okay,
Tuesday.
you're not going to remember me from it, we
Oh,
met there.
okay, you were there
Well, I used to play the jam session there after.
afterwards. Oh,
Yeah, it didn't
okay. All right.
last long. It was dead. You know,
I remember that. Like Ken Fowler was doing it for a minute, and
Mhm.
were you on that band
After that.
after that? Oh, after. Okay, gotcha. All right. I think I might not have been there at that point because I would get there an hour before Annie's gig, and then we'd like have drinks for about an hour after, and then I was like, I had to go home at that point, so I probably missed you.
Yeah, no. So you had a 10-year run there.
I worked with her every Tuesday for 10 years. I mean, I did sub it out because I had started with Jane Monheit in 2007, so I was touring, but it was definitely my gig, and I was lucky enough to get to sub it out once in a while. And she was just an amazing influence in so many ways. She was like my mom. I mean, really like an
Rest her soul.
amazing presence in my life. I miss her dearly.
Yeah, she passed a couple, like I think like COVID year, right?
Yeah, like right in the beginning of that. Yeah, exactly. She lived a really great long life. I mean, she definitely had some bad periods where it's amazing she lived as long as she did. That's all I'm going to say. She really was from very good genes, and she looked beautiful till the very end. She was just like a very great stock, very hardy person.
Do you see yourself that way? Like, I want to be doing this until I'm in, my 90s or like, because I don't ever want to retire. I want to live and do music for as long as I can. I never, I don't care what
Yeah,
the parameters are.
I think it's weird. Yeah, think. I mean, musicians, I don't think generally retire. Maybe they retire from like teaching from a school but yeah, no, I mean, I don't, are you familiar with Bill Crow, the jazz bassist who's like 97 years old and he
Mhm.
played with Jerry Mulligan and Chet Baker and he's still playing. I mean, I did a documentary on him actually
Oh,
that's on YouTube called Bill Crow Jazz Journeyman and it's on YouTube for free. I did it several years ago, but yeah, I want to be that guy. I
how
mean,
old is
because I
he?
feel like he's 97.
Oh,
Yeah. It keeps you, I feel like as soon as I would stop doing it, I would like disintegrate. I mean, I feel like it's what keeps me going.
yeah. I don't understand people. I mean, when I meant retirement, people may maybe stop uh playing and just do more teaching, that sort of thing.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. But to stop music altogether, you hear about that once in a while. I think that's kind of an odd thing, after knowing what music feels like to want to quit it, unless
So
it's for
let's
health reasons.
bring that lead us into, I want to talk to you about teaching on the collegiate level. There's
Mm.
I mean, I'm a product of the jazz education world of being, went through the system, and I'm also a professor now. So have the students changed in your eyes over the years with technology? Are they hungrier as they used to be? Do they come in knowing more right away in your eyes? Like, what can you say about teaching that's changed?
Well, I mean, it's funny. Like I didn't really finish going to Manhattan School of Music. I went for a year and I dropped out to take a gig abroad and took a leave of absence and then never went back. I was much more enjoying playing, which I was starting to do a lot of as young bass players get to. As soon as you can play a few scales and you can return the phone call and show up on time, you're gonna be working all the time. So I was just wanting that kind of education, and I guess I always just wanted to be like my heroes and not to have come. But I wanted to get good technique from classical, but I think that students today are just so prepared and have so much vocabulary and so much technique, and I guess because they have a lot of access to information more than I did. I mean,
I mean,
when I wanted to
it's
learn a
insane,
tune,
really. It's insane the
it's
level.
it's it's amazing how much they all retain. I mean, I feel like for me to like if I wanted to learn a tune like you know uh where are you, like an old standard, like where that tune, where are you, like I had to go to like Lincoln Center Library and take out a book and Xerox it and then bring it home and then make my own chart. And I just feel like everything is right there for you now, and also YouTube with all the recordings, and it's amazing. I mean, the students are just it's amazing the level of talent and technique, and I'm always very impressed.
I used
Yeah.
to have to use the amazing slowdowner, which was like if you
Oh
wanted.
man, I love that. I mean, I wish I had it when I was growing. I just would ruin cassettes with, but yeah, I use that. And actually now YouTube has a built-in
Oh, I
on
know.
it.
Yeah.
It's brilliant. I mean, when I'm rehearsing for someone's gig and they send me their album and it's all on YouTube, my practicing is so streamlined. It's beautiful. I love it.
So what's on the on the agenda for you like this coming month per se? Because I imagine the schedule changes all the time. So can you talk to us a little bit about the day to day in that sense?
Well, I'm totally freelance, 100%. I teach just a little bit. I have one student right now through City College, and then sometimes players will come from other countries and contact me as well as a few other people they want to take a lesson with. So I wouldn't say I'm like teaching a lot, but I do enjoy it privately. But I'm just working different clubs all the time. I'm working with different people. I work a lot at Mesro, which is one of my favorite clubs I've ever played at. And I love the fact that it's pretty much like 90% acoustic. You're not working with sound men there. It's the room, it's the audience. It's just like, it's kind of like what I imagine like the Village Vanguard was when it first started. I mean, it's Village Vanguard still has that kind of church-like thing where it's just like this, it's so pure and beautiful. I
Have you
haven't
played the
been down there.
Vanguard before?
I haven't played there in years, but I played there. I used to kind of sub with the Monday night orchestra,
Got it.
but it's been a long time. But I've never actually done a week there.
You
And
see, that bothers me. That bothers me, Neil. I'm sorry.
oh well, I mean that's but I think that thank you for saying that. But I feel like Mesro is like my vanguard. It's
I
like
got
the
I
place
totally
that I'm so
it's
grateful, and like the I talk with musicians all the time when we play there. It's just one of the few places where you just walk out of there and you just have this amazing feeling that you connected with an audience, especially if they're listening, which they usually are. It's just a very powerful place to play. It's like no other place I think I've ever played in
yeah,
the
I
world.
haven't played there. I've been there, but I played at Smalls. I played at the Blue Note. I those are special rooms. But
Those are, I mean, yeah, Smalls is another one. Uh, Obviously, Blue Note, they're all great. I mean, Dizzy's, Smoke, there's so many great rooms. But Mesro has this acoustic element that none of them have. That's just like, it's kind of it's just like old fashioned in a great way. Yeah, I love it. So,
yeah. Well, no, I hope you didn't take that the wrong way. I'm just saying, someone at your level, they should have played at least once at the in the
yeah,
band. Like that. It's in that sense. It's just
yeah, it's okay. I mean, there's so many scenes. There's so many scenes in jazz now. It's, yeah, I mean, I have a lot of friends who haven't played there either. So I think about it sometimes,
well,
but
my
it's
goal is to
okay.
break. My goal is to break down the barrier of the scenes as a musician and podcaster because the
Mhm.
fact of the matter is, it's even though we're all different, you have to celebrate everybody's uniqueness, and we're all in this together. And otherwise, it's not going to move. It's going to just stay stagnant.
Oh, I hear you. Well, I'm very lucky. Spike and I are dear old friends, and he gives me regular monthly gigs at Mesro with my own trio, which I'm just so overjoyed to do, and I'm learning. It's with Chris Byers and Jason Tiemann, and we play uh, my all my original music that Chris Byers has been playing with me for over 30 years. I've known him that long, and he just has always memorized my music just voluntarily. And it's again another amazing experience for me because I'm not like twisting people's arms, like, hey, can you play my music? And all my music is like based on standards, so it's not like as demanding as just a completely original composition in 5/4, and
Yeah, I got it. It's very it's like based on the standards and pretty
it's
straight.
more straight ahead. Yeah,
Yeah.
yes,
Well, he
but
was
it's
supposed to do the podcast, but it's something fell through. So, please mention it to him if you can, because I have another friend reach out and say, 'cause I would love to talk to him about everything.
Okay, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. But it's so yeah, I mean, I feel very happy to be playing. I mean, I used to be on the road almost all the time with Jane Monheit. There were years I was out like 2 weeks of every month. I was out on the road, and I just love being more in town and local, and sleeping in my own bed instead of a hotel. And it's just really a
You
wonderful time of my life.
used to do 15 to 20 weeks on the road a year, in a sense, if you say
Uh, back then.
back
Yeah,
then.
back then, yeah, it was like it was a different time with the touring too. I mean, I used to have a bass trunk. Every band brought around their bass. It was just like what you did. No one got rental basses, or they didn't even have them maybe. But so I'm lucky I got to experience that as well. But the times have changed, and now people like pick up bands in Europe because it just doesn't pay enough to bring a band. People can't really support a whole band anymore, which is eh, so. I mean, it's all good. I'm just grateful to be working and playing in New York, and I get to travel a little bit too. So traveling's wonderful when it happens. Yeah.
Have you, I mean, you said some musicians who come from other countries will take a lesson with you. Have you had people who come over here from other countries, you're their sideman, for any sort of recording or gigs like that?
Oh, you mean that? Oh, like so they come over here and then I
Yeah, like
play
they would
gigs.
come here. Yeah.
Yeah, Fabienne Mary is a trumpet player from France who calls me sometimes when he comes over, and he's the first name that's coming to mind. Um, but not too often. It's yeah, I don't
Well,
know.
no,
I mean,
I'm not surprised because that even if it's just one, because it's just like if someone, it's hard enough to play in the States as an American. So
mhm,
if
mhm.
someone comes over, I'm like, I know the answer is going to be yes to at least one thing. So that's
Right, right, exactly. Yeah. I mean, I mean, I literally work with like, I'm not trying to brag. I
no,
work
no,
with
no.
maybe 40, 50 different people throughout the year. I mean, so I'm actually just going through my 1099s and I have about 30 of them. So, I mean, and that's the wonderful part of being a bass player is just getting to play with a lot of people. I
And you have
mean,
a
if I
wedding ring
was,
on your hand too. So
but,
and you have a wedding ring on. Yeah.
oh yes. I finally got married. So yeah, I have
Beautiful.
time for that. But yeah, it's a pleasure to work with a lot of people. I feel like working with one person can be really wonderful too, but it's just such a pleasure I mean, there's so many great young players. Sometimes I'm playing with players who are 30 years younger than me, and they're fantastic. And I'm just, really lucky to be on the bandstand with them,
Well, I like
you
to
know.
hear that too, because even though you're older, you're in your 50s, I think, right? Something like that.
I just turned 55.
55, yeah. So even you're
Mhm.
saying you're on musicians who are, 20 years younger than you, or 20 to 30 years younger than you, you're not going on with any sort of like, oh, I'm older, so I have to, it's going to be different. You're just like, I'm going to play. The music's better.
I don't like, yeah, I just like to get in there and just treat them like we're all just playing. I mean,
I hate
if
that. Yeah, I hate that
if they
shit.
can play, they can. Yeah, because I grew up with some older players who would be like giving me a hard time, and I never really. It made me realize I never wanted to do that to someone else.
I
But
love that. I
yeah,
love,
it's just fun. We just play. I mean, if you can play, you can play. It doesn't matter.
yeah.
Yeah.
But I'm sure even in recent years, you've seen people who you're working with, maybe as the leader, maybe they were like that with other people.
Yes.
You
Yes. Yes. Totally. Absolutely. Yeah. I
um
mean, I just and if I feel like there's something that I need to say to the person, if they're younger, I don't really want to say it with my words. I just want to play and just hopefully they'll hear something or feel something that I'm trying to contribute that because I also grew up with some older cats who were like very harsh and rough and and I did learn from it, but I feel like there's a better way to do it. I feel like you don't have to use your words as much as you can just like kind of convey it with your playing, hopefully, if they're really listening, you know.
it's also a different time too, with the mental health being talked about more and stuff, and these things can really, affect people negative.
Oh, yeah, yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, it was a rougher time. Yeah, it's definitely different now. It's a little more
Oh man, I could go back.
coddled. Yeah,
I could sue Berkeley at this point. I won't, but there's probably a
right.
statute of limitations. But
Yeah, yeah. No, I mean, yeah, I mean, today everyone's like, "Hey, you sound great. Hey, you sound great." I remember coming up, people would just be like, "Man, you got to get together," or it's that you really folded on that tune. It was just like, whoa. But
I
it was
know.
also good. It kind of like it really made you want to get good and strong, and it was just a different generation. People were a little rougher. A little harsher.
That's probably the most sounds great, the most used term, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Killing. Yeah, man. Sounds great.
Yeah, it's just no one wants to offend each other, but sometimes better than just to not say anything, I suppose, too. Just say nice meeting you and that's it.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. That can be annoying too to me sometimes. Like if I'm like, playing with a younger player and I'm like, hey man, you sounds really good. And he's like, ah, nice to play with, or like, yeah, thanks. Or just say thanks, like, okay. It's not like I need it back, but yeah, it should be like a two-way street, like,
You know that you're totally right.
yeah, maybe it should just be a polite nicety, whatever. It's all good. I just, I mean, everyone seems very nice today, which is wonderful. Because yeah, I don't, it's not like I loved it when it was rougher, you
Well, you
know.
know what? Maybe they say thanks, but don't say you sound great too because they feel insecure about the way
Right,
you.
that you're so right. Yeah, it could easily be a shyness thing. Yep, yeah, you're right. Yeah, you're totally right.
Because if I've had a shitty gig and someone said to me, "Oh yeah, that sound good," I'm like, yeah, thanks. I
Yeah,
get
right.
it, all the insecurity, but nonetheless, it is important to keep these things in mind. Um,
Totally, totally.
so you said we were talking. One more thing I wanted to just talk about really quickly. The amount of musicians you said 40 to 50 people, and you have 30 1099s. Is this like the highest it's been in those terms of those numbers, or was it or has it ever been maybe a little bit more, or maybe
I'd say this is higher,
this is
and
a
it's
higher?
probably because a good point is because everything is on the books now.
Mhm.
I mean, I grew up when I'd say most of my gigs were in cash. Like everything is like almost every the only gig that I do now that's in cash is the ear in with the irregulars, John Eric Kelso and Matt Munisteri and Scott Robinson does it a lot. That's the only gig that I do, and that's the only reason I have cash in my drawer is from that gig because everything else is like Venmo, check, PayPal, you know. So that's why everything's a 1099 now too. I think a lot before that it was just like much more stuff was in cash, but yeah, it's a lot. Yeah, it's
Yeah, I
it's,
get it.
it's exhausting.
You have to say, "Oh, send us your W-9 before the gig."
I've gotten really good at that. I remember when I was much younger, I barely knew how to fill that thing out, but now I'm just like, it's
You know what I do? I have one saved, like with my signature on it, and I just
oh
that's
yeah.
it's from like 2022. I just send the same one to them, and it just saves, so I don't have to keep filling them out. So
You know what? I had one of those too, and I might want to give you a tip. Maybe it didn't affect you this year, but I sent one and someone said, "Oh no, I need the 2024 one." And so I had to download the new one. And so now that's the one that I have saved. So you might run into that, or if you haven't, you just you'll be aware. Next year you'll probably get asked
no,
for that one. Yeah.
you're right. That has happened, but yeah, this is for the world we live in. The musicians talking about 1099.
I know yeah, no, it's a different time for that, but I mean it's good. It's all in the books. I mean, if you get audited, which you hope you don't, at least everything is like here it is. That's what I did.
I don't think too many jazz musicians are going to be. I know I haven't seen that happen. Have you seen any jazz musicians be audited?
The ones that I have heard of, apparently it's just random. Like the IRS is just like kind of curious about your income bracket
Got it.
and they want to learn from you. Or maybe like say you were doing some like really high paying gig for a year and then or vice versa, and then the next year it ends, or you have nothing and then you get a high paying gig and it's like a big influx in your income, then they're going to be like, hey, what's going on? So, but luckily, mine's been kind of, just up and down. So luckily I haven't gotten audited, but
Ebbs and flows. No, Neil, thanks so much for doing this. This was such a fun conversation.
oh, likewise, man. Thank you so much, Abe, for having me on here. And I'm sorry I talked so much about taxes and
No,
1099.
that's
It's so
great.
boring.
No, it's important. This is important stuff. I mean, if you want to make a living. So no,
Well,
I appreciate it.
congratulations in this show and all that you're doing, and keep it up, man. This is really important, getting the word out, and it really means a lot to me that you
Oh,
thought
we're
to.
just getting started. And if you ever want to come back and do it again, you're more than welcome.
That sounds great. Can I mention one thing?
Oh, please. Yeah. Sorry about that.
I have a book that I've been working on for several years that's about to come out. It'll be available on Amazon, print to order. It's a bass book called Jazz Melodies Just for Bass. And it's tunes that I've been writing for over the past 25 years that are geared to be played on the bass. And a lot of them are over standards, a lot of blueses, major and minor
Like
blueses, and
counterfacts type stuff. Is that what?
contrafacts, exactly. Contrafacts, and it's going to have a companion My Music Masterclass masterclass that can go with it if you want to purchase that. But I want people to keep an eye out for that. It's good for pros. It's also going to be great for teachers and students. So Jazz Melodies Just for Bass is the name of it, and I hope to you'll be seeing some of it on social media.
Beautiful. Thanks so much.
Thank you.